Greetings, my ghastly ghouls and groovy goblins. Welcome to a night where the eerie meets the ethereal, and the spooky intertwines with the smoky. Count Dankula here, your host for a night of chilling tales from the Dank Side. Prepare yourselves for an evening that will send shivers down your spine and perhaps a few giggles from the green. Tonight, we'll be diving into the hazy world where horror and herb collide. Imagine a place where the fog of fear is as thick as the smoke from your favorite strain. Get ready for some spooky stories with a cannabis twist that'll leave you both terrified and maybe a little bit hungry.
Creeping through the TV glow, Count Dankula begins the show with a laugh that shows your side and stories that twist like vines. In the smoke-filled haunted night, ghosts and ghouls and green delight, whispers on the darkened breeze, cannabis tales make you freeze. Tales from the Dank Side, up and watch the shadows glide, high on tales that mystify. Dankula's laugh, a wicked guide. Zombie plants rise from the earth, cannabis curses, otherworldly birth. In each puff, a tale unfolds, strange and eerie, both bold and bold. Monsters lurk in hazy mist, with every toke you can't resist. Fear entwined with every hit, Count Dankula's eerie wit. From the Dank Side, puff and lows, cause the rebel lost the loser.
Picture yourself in a haunted house, but instead of creaky floorboards, it's the crunch of edibles underfoot. The air is thick with the scent of fear, and maybe a hint of Maui Wowie. The perfect blend to keep you on edge and relaxed at the same time. Our first spine-tingling tale comes from a viewer just like you. A story so chilling it could only be shared in the dead of night. But before we begin, let me remind you that these stories are not for the faint of heart or the weak of lungs. If you think you can handle the terror, then stay tuned. So grab your favorite smoking apparatus, pack a bowl of your bravest bud, and prepare to be thoroughly spooked. Gather your friends, turn down the lights, and let the eerie ambience take over. Remember, if you get too scared, just remember, it's all in good fun, and maybe the munchie's talking. Laughter is the best way to chase away the shadows after all. Now, let the dank and dreadful stories begin. Sit back, light up, and let the tales of terror and tokes transport you to a world where the supernatural and the stoned coexist in perfect harmony. Our first terrifying tale comes from a viewer named Mary Jane Man 420. Now, Mary Jane Man 420 claims he was just minding his own business, enjoying a relaxing evening with his favorite strain, when things took a turn for the terrifying. Could this be a case of one too many hits, or something far more sinister? Let's find out, shall we? But first, a word of warning. What you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. It's a tale of paranoia, potent edibles, and a shadowy figure that may or may not be the result of a particularly strong sativa. Are you brave enough to continue? I thought so. It all started with a batch of my famous cosmic brownies, wrote Mary Jane Man 420. I know, original name, right? But trust me, these brownies were legendary. I used my grandma's secret recipe and added a little something extra for good measure. Mary Jane Man 420 went on to describe how he devoured half the pan in one sitting, feeling pretty proud of his baking skills. He settled in to watch a horror movie marathon, figuring a little fright night would pair nicely with his current state of bliss. Little did he know, the real horror was about to begin. As the night wore on, Mary Jane Man 420 started to feel different. The shadows in his apartment seemed to twist and turn, taking on menacing shapes. He could have sworn he heard whispers coming from the other room, whispering his name. Panic began to set in. Had he used too much of his special ingredient? Was this just a bad trip, or was something more sinister at play? He fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling, and tried to call his buddy for reassurance. But every time he dialed, all he could hear was an eerie, echoing laughter on the other end of the line. Section 5. Viewer Submission, Green-Eyed Ghoul. Our next spine-chilling story comes from Green-Eyed Ghoul, who claims to have encountered a different kind of high strangeness. It all started with an antique bong, a spooky antique shop, and a puff that would change everything. Green-Eyed Ghoul wrote, "I've always been drawn to the unusual, the eerie, the things that go bump in the night. So naturally, when I stumbled upon this creepy little antique shop tucked away on a dark side street, I couldn't resist venturing inside." She continued, "Amongst the dusty furniture and cobweb-covered trinkets, I spotted it. A magnificent antique bong, crafted from dark, swirling glass. The shopkeeper assured me it was a one-of-a-kind piece, but there was something about it that sent shivers down my spine. Despite my unease, I decided to buy it. The shopkeeper's eyes seemed to follow me as I left the store, adding to the eerie feeling. As I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The shadows seemed to move and the air grew colder with each step. Once home, I placed the bong on my table and stared at it, wondering what secrets it held. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to try it out. As I took a deep puff, the smoke swirled around me, creating strange patterns in the air. Suddenly, the room began to distort, and I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It was as if I was being transported to another realm. Shadowy figures appeared around me, and eerie whispers filled the air. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but it felt like they were trying to communicate with me. I tried to move, but my body felt paralyzed. The fear was overwhelming, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The figures grew closer, and their faces became clearer. They had hollow eyes and twisted expressions, as if they were trapped souls seeking release. In a moment of desperation, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. When I opened them again, the figures were gone, and the room was back to normal. I looked at the bong with a mix of fear and curiosity, wondering what had just happened. Was it a hallucination, or had I truly glimpsed another world? Despite the unsettling feeling, Green-Eyed Ghoul decided to keep the bong, drawn to its mysterious aura and the intricate craftsmanship that set it apart from the rest. She was certain it would make a unique addition to her collection, a centerpiece that would spark conversations and intrigue among her friends. Back home, she carefully cleaned the bong, taking her time to ensure every detail was spotless. She marveled at the delicate patterns etched into the glass, each swirl and curve telling a story of its own. The more she looked at it, the more she felt a strange connection to the object, as if it held secrets waiting to be uncovered. As she prepared to take her first hit, the phone rang, breaking the silence of the room. She jumped, her heart racing from the sudden interruption. It was her best friend, her voice trembling with fear. "Don't use it," she pleaded, her words filled with urgency and dread. "I just had the worst nightmare about you and that bong," she continued, her voice cracking. "Something bad is going to happen." Green-Eyed Ghoul listened, her mind racing with thoughts of what her friend had seen. But she quickly dismissed it as her friend being overly imaginative, a common trait she had grown accustomed to. She reassured her friend, promising to be careful, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her chest. After hanging up, she shook her head, trying to rid herself of the lingering fear. She took a deep breath and decided to go ahead with her plan. She took a long, slow drag, feeling the smoke fill her lungs. The room seemed to grow colder, but she ignored the sudden chill in the air. She shivered slightly, but attributed it to her imagination running wild after the phone call. That's when she heard it. A faint ringing sound, barely audible at first, but growing steadily louder. It was coming from inside the bong itself. She stared at it in disbelief, her mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. The ringing wouldn't stop, echoing through the room and sending chills down her spine. She looked around, trying to find another explanation, but there was none. The eerie glow from the bong seemed to pulse in time with the ringing, creating an atmosphere of pure terror. Panicked, she put the bong down and backed away slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she had to do something, but what? The fear was paralyzing, and the ringing continued, relentless and unyielding. Desperate, she grabbed her phone and dialed her friend's number, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She needed help, and she needed it now. As the phone rang, she felt tears streaming down her face. The fear was overwhelming, and she could only hope her friend would answer in time. And on that note, now, a word from our sponsor, the Healing Center of Needles. Feeling a little anxious after that last story? Need something to take the edge off? The Healing Center has got you covered. From the spookiest strains to the chillest edibles, the Healing Center is your one-stop shop for all things cannabis. They've got all the latest strains, vapes, and everything you want under the sun to satisfy your every cannabis curiosity. So, head on over to 1400 Needles Highway in Needles, California, and visit one of theirs iconic spot on Route 66 and tell them Count Dankula sent you. But be warned, their selection is so good, it might just scare you. Well, my fellow fiends, it seems our time in the shadows has come to an end, for now. I hope you enjoyed tonight's terrifying tales from the Dank Side. Remember, if you have a spooky story to share, don't hesitate to send it my way. You never know, you might just be featured on the next episode of Tales from the Dank Side. Until next time, stay dank, stay scared, and keep those bongs lit. Sweet screams! Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you dared to enjoy it. And check out thedailydank.com for all your cannabis needs. And be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the next episode of Tales from the Dank Side. Stay spooky, my friends.
Thank you for joining us on the It's 420 Somewhere podcast. Broadcasting worldwide and brought to you by thedailydank.com. Check out our merchandise and amazing content. And follow us on all our social media. Now, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.